Today, in a New York federal courtroom, Sean Diddy Combs told the judge he was, quote, a little nervous. The rap mogul's criminal trial began this morning. He is trafficking, racketeering, and more.
You see, there's no artist, let me be clear, there's no artist in this industry that's doing major numbers with these platforms that haven't sold their soul.
The courtroom was electric, a stage set for the kind of drama that could redefine the music industry. Today wasn't just another day in court. It felt like history in the making. The stakes were colossal, the tension suffocating. Seated at the center of this whirlwind were two of music's most powerful figures, Sean Diddy Combs and Sean Jay-Z Carter, their legacies hanging by a thread. The world outside was buzzing with speculation, and inside, the air was thick with anticipation. This wasn't just a trial about allegations or lawsuits, this was the unraveling of an empire, a collision of fame, wealth, and the dark underbelly of power that thrives in the entertainment world. And today, the focus was squarely on Jay-Z.
You can be in love with someone, you can love someone and if you haven't experienced love and you don't understand it and you don't have the tools to move forward, then you're gonna have complications.
The courtroom had been packed since dawn, a sea of reporters, legal experts, and curious onlookers, all craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the man who once seemed untouchable. Jay-Z, with his composed exterior and commanding presence, took the stand. But there was no mistaking the gravity of the moment. This wasn't the Sean Carter who had built an empire from the ground up, the billionaire who had once said he was not a businessman, but a businessman. This was a man under siege. Every word he spoke, weighed, dissected, and analyzed for the smallest hint of guilt or complicity.
Jay-Z new video with Nas and DJ Khaled is a scene with checkerboards. These are all occult, Satanist, symbolic symbols.
As Jay-Z sat down, the room seemed to hold its breath. This wasn't his first battle, but it was undoubtedly his most perilous. The prosecution wasted no time diving straight into the crux of their argument, the lie detector test. This test wasn't just a formality, it had become the focal point of a case that had captivated the world. The results were clear, Jay-Z had passed. But the victory was hollow. His answers, while technically truthful, had raised more questions than they had resolved. The inconsistencies, the nuances in his responses painted a picture that was anything but clear. The prosecution had seized on this ambiguity, using it as a springboard to dig deeper into the shadows of his life and his connections to Diddy. The lie detector wasn't just a tool, it was a symbol. It represented not only the search for truth, but also the crumbling of carefully constructed facades. The trial had already exposed the dark side of the industry, lavish parties that were allegedly fronts for exploitation, victims who had been silenced for years, and the pervasive power dynamics that allowed it all to happen. But now, the focus was narrowing, zeroing in on Jay-Z's role in this intricate web of influence and secrecy.
Because we now know who all the prosecutors will be on Diddy's trial. They're all women. They have assembled a team of female prosecutors, and that is definitely not by accident.
The prosecution painted a vivid picture of the infamous gatherings that had been whispered about in industry circles for decades. These weren't just parties, they were elaborate productions, meticulously planned and shrouded in mystery. Witnesses described them as playgrounds for the powerful, where guests were allegedly sedated, coerced, and manipulated. The victims' testimonies were chilling, their stories consistent and hauntingly detailed. They spoke of waking up in unfamiliar places, of being trapped in situations they couldn't escape, and of the overwhelming fear that their careers and lives depended on their silence. Jay-Z's name was woven throughout these accounts, not as a direct participant, but as someone who was there, who knew, and who did nothing. The prosecution argued that his silence was tantamount to complicity, that his loyalty to Diddy and the empire they had built together had blinded him to the suffering of others. And the lie detector test, while clearing him of outright deception, had done nothing to dispel the cloud of suspicion. If anything, it had deepened it. His answers were truthful, yes, but they were also incomplete, evasive. Why had he hesitated when asked about his knowledge of the parties? Why had his tone shifted when questioned about the victims? The jury was left to grapple with these questions, their faces a mix of curiosity and doubt. The courtroom drama didn't stop there. The prosecution brought up the victims' testimonies once more, this time linking them directly to Jay-Z. They highlighted his long-standing friendship with Diddy, pointing out that the two men had been almost inseparable during the height of their careers. Photos of the two at parties, events, and even private gatherings were presented as evidence, each one a stark reminder of their close connection. The prosecution argued that this bond wasn't just personal, it was strategic, a partnership built on mutual ambition and allegedly shared secrets.
Centerpiece of a lot of what happened during direct testimony were freak-offs. And what the prosecution tried to show was that he forced and/or coerced her into doing these freak-offs. And we've talked about this earlier this week, that, at least my opinion is, that in a lot of these, the prosecution just didn't close the loop. It was something she felt.
Victim stories added weight to these claims. One woman whose testimony had already shaken the courtroom described being invited to a party under the guise of a professional opportunity, only to find herself in a situation that was anything but. She spoke of being sedated and waking up in a room full of strangers, her memories fragmented and her sense of control shattered. Another victim described similar experiences, her voice trembling as she recounted the fear and confusion that had haunted her ever since.
This is what I look for. When I see a success, I'm looking for anything
to say that they didn't do it on their own?
Detain it, not to say
That's not a good...
The prosecution wasn't just building a case against Diddy, they were tightening the noose around Jay-Z as well. They argued that while he may not have been the mastermind, he was far from innocent. His presence at these parties, his silence in the face of wrongdoing, and his evasive answers during the lie detector test all pointed to a man who had something to hide, and the more they dug, the more it seemed that the truth was beginning to crack through the surface. Outside the courtroom, the media frenzy showed no signs of slowing down. Headlines screamed of scandal and betrayal of an industry built on power and privilege now being torn apart by its own excesses. Social media was ablaze with speculation, conspiracy theories, and debates about guilt and innocence. Some defended Jay-Z, arguing that his success had made him a target, while others saw his silence as a damning indictment of his character. The lie detector test had become a flashpoint, a symbol of a larger battle between truth and deception, between justice and power.
Let's talk about the filth that's starting to come out in the early days of the Diddy trial. This, of course, is P. Diddy. Surprise, surprise, he's a creep. Surprise, surprise, he's done horrible things.
As the day's proceedings came to a close, the tension in the room was palpable. Jay-Z's testimony had raised more questions than answers, leaving the jury and the public to grapple with the implications. This wasn't just a trial, it was a reckoning, a moment that could reshape the music industry and the lives of everyone involved. The world was watching, waiting for the next chapter in this unfolding drama. And one thing was certain, this story was far from over. As the courtroom drama unfolded, the atmosphere shifted, taking us from the immediate tension of Jay-Z's testimony to the broader, darker undercurrents of what this trial truly represents. This isn't just about two men or even their alleged actions, it's about the secrets of an industry that has thrived in the shadows for decades. The rumors have always been there, whispered in back rooms and hinted at in cryptic interviews, but now they're being dragged into the light, and the picture they paint is both shocking and deeply unsettling. The prosecution didn't stop with Jay-Z's connection to Diddy's alleged schemes. They widened the lens, pulling in a web of conspiracy theories that have only gained momentum since the trial began. Online speculation has exploded, with social media platforms like TikTok and X, formerly known as Twitter, becoming battlegrounds for wild theories and eerie coincidences. One of the most chilling claims ties Jay-Z, Diddy, and even Beyonce to the untimely ends of beloved icons like Aaliyah, Michael Jackson, and Lisa Left Eye Lopes. The internet has latched on to the numerical pattern that links these tragedies. All three artists passed away on the 25th of different months. This detail, combined with J. Cole's haunting lyrics in She Knows, has fueled a firestorm of speculation.
Hold it down with the lovely Aaliyah. What's going on, Aaliyah?
What's up? How you doing? I'm good. It's been a while, sure has.
Could it all be a coincidence? Or is there something more sinister at play? The prosecution didn't directly address these theories in court, but the timing of their rise in popularity is impossible to ignore. J. Cole's song, which references Aaliyah, Left Eye, and Michael Jackson, has taken on a life of its own, with fans dissecting every word for hidden meanings. The title itself, She Knows, has been interpreted as a cryptic nod to Beyonce and Jay-Z's alleged awareness of events that many refuse to believe were purely accidental. The internet is ablaze with accusations, and while there's no concrete evidence to support these claims, the sheer volume of speculation has added another layer of intrigue to an already explosive trial. But the conspiracy theories don't stop there. Jaguar Wright, a singer who has become a controversial figure in her own right, has reignited conversations about the power dynamics within the music industry. In a recent interview, she referred to Jay-Z and Beyonce as a nasty little couple and claimed to know multiple individuals ready to testify against them for alleged wrongdoing. While Wright's statements lack formal documentation or corroboration, they've added fuel to the public's growing distrust of the entertainment elite. Her allegations, combined with the resurfacing of old photos and videos featuring Jay-Z, Diddy, and other high-profile figures, have painted a damning picture of an industry where power and influence often go unchecked.
So why does it all come to a head now? Why now? Why?
Because he's the acceptable monster at this time, like R. Kelly was the last time I sat on this couch.
So who's next?
Y'all don't see the lineup?
The courtroom itself became a theater of revelations when the prosecution introduced details about Diddy's infamous gatherings. Dubbed freak-offs by those who attended, these multi-day events were described by witnesses as elaborate, carefully orchestrated affairs designed to cater to Diddy's every whim. The testimonies were graphic and deeply unsettling, with multiple victims describing how they felt coerced into participating. One woman recounted how Diddy's security team would confiscate phones and enforce a strict code of silence, ensuring that nothing from these events ever reached the public eye. Others spoke of being manipulated with promises of career advancement, only to find themselves trapped in situations they could neither control nor escape. The implications for Jay-Z grew darker as the prosecution highlighted his attendance at these gatherings. While he wasn't accused of direct involvement in the alleged misconduct, his presence raised significant questions. Why was he there? What did he see? And most importantly, why did he stay silent? The defense argued that Jay-Z was merely a guest, uninvolved in the darker aspects of these events, but the prosecution countered with a chilling argument. Silence, in this case, was complicity. By failing to speak out, they claimed Jay-Z had allowed these alleged abuses to continue unchecked.
My initial reaction, because that's how I always feel when I see situations like this. And then there's this weird sense of grief because it is Diddy, right? Diddy is a hip hop hero. He's an ordinary person who did extraordinary things. To sit here and act like the man wasn't a huge part of our upbringing is a damn lie. So there's this weird sense of grief. Like another one of our heroes has ruined their legacy and it's their own fault because of poor choices?
The prosecution then turned to the broader implications of Jay-Z's enduring loyalty to Diddy, pointing to their decades-long partnership as evidence of an unspoken pact. Prosecutors revealed a series of financial connections that tied Jay-Z's businesses to Diddy's network, including shared investments and deals that extended far beyond the music industry. One particularly damning document presented in court detailed a joint venture involving a high-profile event company that had been rumored to host several of the infamous gatherings. The audience was stunned as the prosecution described how this collaboration may have indirectly facilitated the alleged exploitation, painting a picture of systemic complicity that was nearly impossible to ignore. Adding weight to the argument were resurfaced testimonies from individuals who had worked behind the scenes at these events. A former security contractor, whose identity was withheld for safety reasons, claimed that Jay-Z was often seen arriving early and leaving late at Diddy's parties. The contractor described how security staff were briefed to ensure that no cameras or unauthorized personnel could enter these restricted zones. The prosecution argued that Jay-Z's repeated presence, paired with the extreme secrecy surrounding these events, suggested that he knew more than he was willing to admit. This revelation sent a ripple through the courtroom, with many questioning whether Jay-Z's silence over the years was a deliberate choice to protect his own interests.
They saw evidence in the case. They immediately honed in on racketeering and they started saying, why is this racketeering with one guy? And they're charging this one guy. They had a real problem with that. They did not have a problem with the Mann Act. They found him guilty on the Mann Act. And they hung 6 to 6 on racketeering.
What made this all the more shocking was how Jay-Z's brand of transparency and vulnerability in his music stood in stark contrast to the silence he maintained in real life. The prosecution cleverly juxtaposed his lyrics, which often spoke candidly about his past struggles and moral reckoning, with his lack of action when faced with the alleged wrongdoing of his closest allies. They painted this as a betrayal not just of the victims, but of the very fans who had supported his rise to the top. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as attendees digested this duality, a stark reminder of how fame and influence can sometimes obscure the truth rather than reveal it. As the trial progressed, more details emerged about Diddy's empire and the lengths to which he allegedly went to protect it. Prosecutors described a network of enablers, employees, associates, and even other artists who were complicit in maintaining the facade of his carefully curated public image. From the confiscation of evidence to the intimidation of potential witnesses, the tactics described in court painted a picture of an empire built not just on talent and charisma, but on fear and control. It was against this backdrop that Jay-Z's role was examined, his ties to Diddy scrutinized with an intensity that left the courtroom on edge. The defense, meanwhile, attempted to shift the narrative, portraying Jay-Z as a man caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. They emphasized his contributions to the music industry, his philanthropic efforts, and his status as a family man. But these arguments rang hollow in the face of mounting evidence and public skepticism. The lie detector test, which could have been his saving grace, had instead become a symbol of his evasiveness. His calm demeanor, once seen as a sign of confidence, now seemed more like a mask hiding deeper truth. Outside the courtroom, the ripple effects of the trial were being felt across the industry. Artists who had once been close to Diddy and Jay-Z were distancing themselves, issuing carefully worded statements or staying silent altogether. Social media was awash with posts from fans and insiders alike, dissecting every new development and speculating about what might come next. Some wondered if this trial was just the beginning, the first crack in a dam that had held back decades of secrets. Others questioned whether the industry could ever truly change, or if power would simply shift from one set of hands to another.
The question is he a criminal? Is he basically akin to a mob boss running several criminal enterprises? And while it's very clear to me he is a depraved, disgusting person, we have to prove that he violated the law.
As we step back and look at the bigger picture, one thing becomes clear. This trial isn't just about Jay-Z or Diddy. It's a reckoning for an entire industry, a moment of accountability that has been a long time coming. The music world has always been shrouded in mystique, its stars elevated to near mythical status. But now, that mystique is being stripped away, revealing a reality that is far more complicated and far more troubling than anyone could have imagined. The question we're left with is this: what happens next? Will this trial lead to real change, or will it simply be another scandal that fades from memory once the headlines move on? And what other secrets might still be lurking in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered? We may not have all the answers yet, but one thing is certain: this story is far from over. As the trial continues and the revelations keep coming, we'll be here, unraveling the threads and bringing you the truth as it unfolds. Let us know what you think in the comments below, because this is a conversation the world needs to have.